turn the camera off on the first W.
CastCray all day. Let's go.
Well, welcome back, everybody. We got a special one for you this time, another PODCastCray. We have a fellow Christ ambassador, a pro angler and hunter, a TV host for, we'll discuss how many years now, National Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame inductee, Legends of the Outdoors Hall of Fame inductee, and author, 50-plus years of tournament bass angling, introducing your friend and mine, none other than Mr. Fishing Legend, Jimmy
Good
Houston.
to see you, Rick.
How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, We got a really nice day here today, 75 degrees. You might be looking at an empty chair here in just a second. I might be out there on that water.
Oh, I don't blame you. How big is that? How big is your pond there, or your lake, I should say?
Well, we call it a lake in Oklahoma.
Right.
It's 200. It's 130 acres.
Wow, that's awesome.
130.
We'll have to talk more off air. I have a little 12-acre pond in my backyard that I've been trying to grow some monsters.
It depends on where you are. 12 acres is big enough to call a lake. Also, my buddy George W. Bush, that was the governor of Texas and the president, has gotten a 9-acre place that we stocked at his ranch down in Texas. And in all honesty, 9 acres in Texas would be called a tank. They don't call them ponds in Texas; they call them tanks.
Okay.
But since you're the governor and we're a president, he can call it whatever he wants to.
That's
he
right.
calls it a lake. It's a good one. Got a lot of big fish in it.
Yes, sir. It's a lake. Yes, sir. Yeah,
it's a lake,
exactly.
Mr.
That's
President.
Right. All right. Well, nowadays you got Jimmy Houston Outdoors. You can catch all of what Jimmy's up to on his website, which is jimmyhouston.com. And we'll kind of go through that. But if you guys want to check out all that Jimmy has to offer, he's got some new coffee I noticed recently, some new books. Again, we'll get into that here lately, a new book. And but nevertheless, I was kind of perusing, and I'm a big fan, man. I've been watching you since I can remember. I mean, you've inspired. You've inspired so many of us to do what we're doing now. And I appreciate that. But nevertheless, in watching your YouTube channel and such, we heard about Twin Eagle Ranch. How did you get the name Twin Eagle Ranch? Like Rick,
that's really a pretty cool deal. I told that story just the other day, as a matter of fact, and I just happened to be down at the dam back when we bought this. We'll have had this ranch 20 years come April, so we're coming up on a 20-year anniversary since we've had this particular ranch. Originally we bought about 1,200 acres, and we added 700 and some odd to it to push it up to about 2,000. But and we built another lake. We had a lake on it. We bought the ranch because of this lake right here. And I was on the dam right after I bought it. We had 3-wheelers back in those days. It was before 4-wheelers and before side-by-sides. And I was sitting on the dam late in the evening, right before dark, and just looking down the lake. It's over a mile long, and I was on that dam just looking up the lake and just sitting there thinking how blessed I was to really just to have it. I mean, I just was sitting there sort of overwhelmed and visiting with God a little bit. And I looked up in the air, and flying over the lake was 2 big bald eagles just circling like they do, and I thought, wow,
awesome.
Wow, Twin Eagles up there. And I thought,
awesome.
Be a cool name for the ranch. We didn't have a name for it. The creek that it's built on is called Denmark Creek. And Lord have mercy, I'm not going to name a lake in America Denmark.
Right. Exactly.
We thought Twin Eagles was fine. And I've got a partner in this ranch. There's 2 of us that own it, actually. And some people think that Twin Eagles stands for him and me. But one of the guys that worked for us said, well, you ought to name that two old goats instead of 2 eagles. And I said, it's not named after us anyway. So I guess we named it after us. We'd have to name it Twin Goats or something like that.
Now, on the ranch, you obviously have the deer, and you have quite the deer population that you're upbringing and like feeding. And oh man, awesome. And then you have, now, is it pecans or pecans?
Pecans.
Pecan.
A pecan is something you pee in, and a winter is something you throw it out of.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Totally different deal.
Now you guys grow those all year round, obviously, and then you sell them on the website, I imagine.
Well, pecan trees are really big, beautiful trees. They're gorgeous, incredible shade trees, and just beautiful trees. And we've got close to 1,000 trees here on the ranch, pecan
Wow.
trees, and they start growing in the spring, like right about now, and we harvest them. Begin harvesting in November. It's usually about a 6 or 7 week period of time there that you can harvest your pecans. And so we sell fresh pecans through the internet. Most of the pecans we get off this ranch, we sell to a processor. And we've got a processor over here about 20 miles away that's a really good friend of mine, Savage Equipment. They build all of the pecan equipment really for the entire world. They build more than all the other companies put together. And the harvesters and rakes and blowers and sprayers and things like that, they build all of that. And then they build a lot of equipment that you use for cracking pecans and grading them, running them through and kicking out the bad ones, and a lot of really, incredibly fast technology. But we sell most of our pecans to them. But we started 3 or 4 years ago selling through the internet. And that business has just grown every single year. And the thing that we've got in selling those pecans through the internet, Rick, is they're fresh. We only do that during that time of the year when they're fresh. When the pecans that we sell to the processor will be sold in a lot of different areas and situations. They do millions of pounds of pecans, this particular processor from this area, southern Oklahoma and northern Texas. And so those pecans might end up we've got a famous pecan pie place not too far from here, Mrs. Fields Pies. They're pecan pies, and Walmart sells them. I don't know how many they sell a year. It's a big Walmart item, Sam's, and it's really probably the best pecan pie you can buy, prepared pecan pie. Some of our pecans might end up in some of those pies. I don't really know, but the pecans that we sell here through the internet are fresh. They've never been frozen, and you can buy pecans year round, but you cannot buy fresh pecans because they won't last very long, and so they freeze them, and you can actually use them frozen. Really 2 or 3 years later. I mean, if you stick them in your freezer, they're good for I don't really know how long, but a long time. But there's a big difference in taste. You're a fisherman, so if you go out and catch a bunch of crappie, I know you love to crappie fish, and you go out and catch a bunch of crappie, and you say catch 20 or 25 crappie, and you fillet 10 of them out. You fillet them all, but you take about 10 or 12 fillets, 10 or 12 of them, and fry them up for the dinner that night. You stick the rest in the freezer, and you eat them 2 or 3 weeks from now. And those that you have tonight that are fresh are going to taste better than the ones you eat 2 or 3 weeks or a month from now. And the difference is fresh and frozen. And they're the same crappie. They're still good. I mean, the crappie you eat 2 or 3 weeks now are going to taste great, but not nearly as good as what you ate, the fresh crappie. Caught them that day, filleted them, and ate them. And, the Canada trips up there where they fillet the walleye and have shore lunches, and everybody raves that that's the best shore lunch in the world. It's because a lot of those people are eating fresh fish for the first time. And walleye, of course, is like a crappie. It's a pretty delectable fish to eat. But phenomenal. So it is fantastic to eat shore lunches. I stuff myself every day on shore lunches when we're in Canada. But the deal, and with our pecans, and everybody raves about they're the best pecans they've ever tasted, and I don't argue with that. But it's because they're fresh more than the fact that we probably put a lot of tender loving care into them.
Right. I just had this week. There's a local business. We had just recently purchased a warehouse in Sebring, Ohio, and we're expanding. We're putting a retail store in there this year, and it's been quite the undertaking. But this little town's a nice little place, and they have this little place called JP's. And I went in there recently and got a burger. They actually wrap the burger around pecans. I've never heard that, but it was phenomenal. It was absolutely phenomenal.
I love it.
There's so many uses for pecans. Where can they get?
They're a lot of nuts are really healthy things to eat. Fruits and nuts, but the pecans are really, they tell me, one of the most healthy nuts you can eat. It's good for you. So, and that's a good thing because I ate quite a few of them. Now,
are those available too currently on your website?
Well, no, because again, we start taking orders in October 1. Okay. And we start shipping usually around the end of October, or maybe even the first week in November, and then we will ship November and December. maybe into about 10 days into January, and that's about it. From then, everything else goes to processor, and we're carrying them to the processor all throughout the harvesting process.
Wow.
We put them in a trailer that holds about 3,000 pounds of pecans, and we haul the trailer over, and it's a dump trailer, and so we dump them in. It goes through the processors there, and in big giant bags, and they weigh them, and we keep a track. And at the end of the harvest season, we start getting checks in the mail for each load that we've carried over there.
Wow,
And
that's
so
too
it
cool.
works out pretty good. It's kind of fun, and we really don't make hardly any money at all on the pecans that we send out through the internet. But it's kind of more of a service than it is a money making proposition.
It's fun though, isn't it? I mean, I have this little homestead here in Ohio, and I have a couple acres to work with, and we did pumpkins last year and some feed corn and sweet corn. It's a blast out there on the tractor, just kind of getting your hands dirty and having fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fun. Well, we got a couple handful of questions here that we asked our live audience. We do a TikTok show throughout the week, and we asked some of our live fans and some of the ones that made sense and I thought would be good ones. We kind of handpicked. And so here's one. At what point did you decide to make fishing a career? And that's from JC.
Rick, we're not sure really when we became a professional fisherman. When we started fishing tournaments, I was a senior in college, and when I fished my first tournament, and I fished a state preliminary and finished the 4th place, and fished another state preliminary and won it. Then I fished a state championship and won it. So I'd fished 3 tournaments and won 2 of them. So I thought, this is a pretty fun game to play. I like this. And of course, you get humbled really, really quickly. You don't do that that doesn't last very long. Get winning 2 out of 3. But, there was no such thing as professional fishermen. There was nobody out there trying to make a living fishing per se, unless you're in the boat business, you're selling boats, or you're working at a tackle store, or there was just almost no fishing shows on television. I guess Gad About Gaddis, Virgil Ward started his show back. He won the World Series of Sports Fishing, which I actually qualified to fish for in that 1966 when I won that Oklahoma State championship. But and then fished that tournament, fished that World Series of Sports Fishing. But he won that in 1962 and started championship fishing, I guess, the following year, 1963. And there was Gad About Gaddis, who flew the airplane around and went fishing. And Kurt Gowdy had a fishing show that I think they actually just showed his fishing on Wide World of Sports or something. And Kurt Gowdy was quite a good fisherman, I understand. I never met Kurt. I knew Gad About Gaddis. And, of course, Virgil Ward's a very, very good friend. I fished with Virgil many, many times. I actually carried Virgil Ward down to Venezuela with me on a peacock bass fishing trip. Took him on
that sounds awesome.
Peacock bass fishing trip later in his life. But, I fished with Virgil Ward when I was a senior in high school. When he won that tournament, I fished with him and Roy Martin, Glenn Andrews, Glenn Causey, the very best bass fisherman, Joe Krieger, who was a defending world champion. I fished with the very best fisherman in the world when I was a teenager. And that's probably the thing that really, kind of put a little bit of ideas or put something inside of me that, that's pretty cool, the way those guys fish. They're fishing tournaments and winning prizes. And it wasn't a big prize money that we won that, we win these days, and or guys go out there and win a tournament, win 100 or 200 or, even as much as $1 million. A couple guys that won $1 million bass fishing. I remember I won the state championship, and all I got was prizes. I didn't get any money, and I was supposed to get a boat. I didn't even get that boat. Somehow that didn't come through.
Somebody owes you a boat, man.
I didn't even get the boat I was supposed to win. But, the first BASS tournament I ever fished was the second or third tournament that BASS ever had. That was in 1968 at Eufaula, Alabama. And they fished beaver, and then they fished either Eufaula, Alabama, or Smith Lake in Alabama at Jasper. I don't know which was second, which was third, but anyway, the Eufaula, Alabama tournament was one that I fished, and I got the lead the first day in that tournament. I had 11 bass that weighed 52 pounds and some odd ounces, 8 or 10 ounces or something like that. And we had a 15 bass limit, so I only had 11 fish. But I had an 8-10 and an 8-14 and 9-3 on that stringer, so 3 really large bass. And I got my line broken 3 times that day. I should have had another 25 pounds.
Oh, man.
I broke, but anyway, I did not win that tournament. I got the lead the first day, a pretty good lead, 9 pounds. Of course, that's only one fish the size of fish we were catching. Carl Dice had 43 pounds. He guided on Lake Eufaula, and he was a really, really good fisherman. And he had 43 pounds, and he did not end up winning the tournament either. But long story short, I ended up getting 6th place in that tournament, 6th place. And 6th place paid $325. So, entry fees was $125 is what the entry fee was. So, proportionally, that might not have been, that bad. I guess, when you think about it, because entry fees are $5,000 now, and I guess 6th place is probably $15,000 or $20,000. So it's really probably about the same. I got about 3 times what my entry fee was. So, and I didn't pay an entry fee in the tournament. I don't know how that. I just did not pay one. Ray Scott went to his grave swearing he never waived a single entry fee ever in BASS history. And I went to the tournament with my buddies Don Butler and Jerry Roten. And Don Butler swore he didn't pay my entry fee. So I didn't pay it. I didn't have $125. And
wow.
So it's a crazy deal. And like I said,
God paid it. God paid it.
Yeah. We'll never know. We'll never know.
Yep.
There's 2 or 3 things that we'll never know. Another one is that's the tournament where I met Forrest Wood and Nina Wood, and Forrest actually sold me a Ranger bass boat. And I had my first Ranger bass boat in the fall of 1968. It was a 69 model, and Forrest Wood claims that I got that boat in 1969. I know that I got that boat in 1968, and Nina Wood swore that she knew which one of us was right, but she would never tell either one of us. She just let us both think we were right. And I don't know, and now both Forrest and Nina are gone, and so that's another secret that maybe when we get to heaven, maybe Ray and Don Butler will own up to.
That's
what
right.
happened. Either Don Butler paid my $125 or Ray Scott waived it, one or the other.
Right.
And I either got that boat in the fall of 68. It was a 69 model boat. I agreed that. I told Forrest it's a 69 model, but I got it in the fall of 68. And
that's
I couldn't afford it, and I bought it anyway.
That's great.
Yeah, I'm still doing that.
Takes a risk, Takes a risk.
Bass boats.
Mr. Mike actually is asking, he said, what's the funniest thing that's ever happened to you while you're fishing?
Oh, Lord of mercy. I don't know. I get asked about that. The favorite things is my favorite things fishing is, catching, with my kids or with Chris catching, them catching big fish, not me catching big fish. And, I don't know. We've had all kinds of silly stuff out there. We fished with a lot of really neat guys. We fished with Roscoe P. Coltrane from the Dukes of Hazzard, and he's gone now also. And so he was a pretty fun guy and a funny guy to fish with. And we was up there fishing a tournament up there on the Potomac River, and I can't remember my partner's name, but anyway, he was we were fishing out in front of Mount Vernon, which is the residence of George Washington, our first president. And we were up there, and I looked up there, and I told him, I said, "You see that house up there?" I said, "That's Mount Vernon." And my partner said, "Mount Vernon." He said, "Seems like I've heard of Mount Vernon." I said, "Oh yeah." I said, "That's George Washington's house." I said, "Sure, you've heard of it." And he said, "Oh, really?" He said, "Man," he said, "George has got a really nice house." He said, "Does he live there all the time, or is that just a lake house?" And I said, "No, I think George is there permanently." But it's just, I don't know. There's any really. I have fun every time I go. One of the things about tournament fishing, I fish tournaments seriously, but I never took tournaments seriously. And I had a really desire to win an Angler of the Year title. I fished tournaments from 68 up through 74, maybe like 1 or 2 BASS tournaments a year, and then fish Project Sports tournaments, American Angler tournaments, other tournaments around that started actually before BASS. And in 1975 was the first year I went ahead and fished all 6 BASS tournaments. And the reason that I did that, I was actually entered in the Toledo Bend tournament the year before, which would have been 74. And I had to drop out of that tournament, not go to that tournament because we were just so busy at work right then. We owned an insurance agency and we were just so busy and selling so much insurance and making so much money that I just didn't have time to go down there and fish that tournament. And I
So you actually started as an insurance agent then?
Yeah.
No kidding.
That's what we did when we graduated from college. We started an insurance agency and we did that for several years and then sold it. But they just smoked the fish down there. They had a 15 bass limit. And they were just catching 30 and 40 pound stringers, everybody. And I mean, everybody was catching 15 bass. And I'd look at those score sheets and I was just so upset that I wasn't there with them fishing. And so I told Chris that it happened. I said, well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to fish every single BASS tournament next year. I don't care what's going on. I don't care how much it costs me to fish them, how much money I might lose working. I am going to go fish every single BASS tournament. And I fished them all for the first time in 1975. So that was like 7 years after the first tournaments that BASS ever had. And I finished third that year in the Angler of the Year standings. I remember the last tournament was on Lake Texoma and the Angler of the Year standings, and Roland Martin won the Angler of the Year. What's new? Roland Martin won the Angler of the Year. Ricky Green finished second, and I finished third, and Bill Dance finished fourth. And so when that was over, I was talking to Ray Scott, and I told him, I said, I'm going to win the BASS Angler of the Year next year. And he said, oh, you think you are, huh? And I said, I don't think I know. I'm going to win BASS Angler of the Year. I said, I'm going to be the Angler of the Year next year. And he said, do you think you can beat all these hot dogs? You think you can beat Dance and Roland and Ricky and name several, Ricky Clun and several other names? And I said, well, I beat them all this year except Ricky and Roland. So he said, well, I guess you did you? And I said, yeah. And I did win the Angler of the Year in 76, but that was the only year that I really, really set out and really dedicated really my heart and soul to fishing tournaments, because I really wanted to win that Angler of the Year title. And it was a terrible experience to go through. It was gratifying to win it, obviously, but it was a terrible experience because I was sort of my whole being was wrapped up in those bass tournaments trying to win that Angler of the Year. And it's really not worth it to get into that.
Right.
So it's just not worth it for me personally. And I would
dedication away from family and such. And
well, and not only that, but you would get. I didn't pre-fish the tournaments until I didn't, at all. But I just fished the 3 days practice. But it's like that's all I ever thought about, and it was dominating my entire life, and I was so competing so hard that if 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, if I didn't have a pretty good bunch of fish going, if I didn't have wasn't doing pretty good the first 2 or 3 hours of the tournaments, I'd get sick and throw up every single time if I wasn't doing pretty good after the first 2 or 3 hours fishing. That's how hard I was competing, and that's not good for you. It's not healthy, and it's not really what you're supposed to do. So after I won that, and of course the writers and people started talking about, Roland was just such a great fisherman. He's still such a great fisherman. He's the greatest of all time. There's no doubt about that. But he wins like 9 BASS Angler of the Year titles, 9 of them. Hardly anybody's won 2, or 3, let alone 9. And so it just after I did that, I'd tell the writers, I said, I don't care if I won't try to win another one. And I don't ever intend to win another Angler of the Year title. This is what I want to do, and I did it. I don't really care about doing it again. And I really never tried to win another Angler of the Year title again. And we got down to 1986, full 10 years later, and it just so happened that, I fish hard, and I compete hard, and I'm trying hard, and it hurts to lose and everything. But there's a difference in really selling out everything you've got to that tournament and fishing that tournament hard. There's a difference. You have to be a competitor to understand that. People that don't compete can't understand what that takes. But
Jimmy, I was looking online.
I was up there second or third in the standings, or fourth, or something like that. And Chris told me, he said, you can win another Angler of the Year title. I said, I don't care about winning another Angler of the Year title. She said, well, you only got 2 tournaments to go, and you probably need to really work hard at these 2 tournaments, because if you do well in both of them, you got a shot at winning another Angler of the Year title. And the first Angler of the Year title I won didn't pay anything. It was just a matter of winning that title and getting that trophy and having that, on your resume, you might say. And the second time around, they were paying some money for it. And I had a deal in my contract with Mercury that said I got a $10,000 bonus. And
Hey.
BASS wasn't paying anything. I think Shrin was paying $2,500. So, it was worth a few $1,000s to win Angler of the Year. So, she told me, she said, you need to go pre-fish the last 2 tournaments, which we don't pre-fish. We just fish a 3-day practice. It's allotted. That's all we ever did. I said, well, I don't pre-fish. I don't do that. It probably messed me up. She said, you need to go do that. You do good in these 2 tournaments, you got a shot to win it. And so I did that, those 2 tournaments, and actually, won it again in 1986. But that was, wow. I won't say it's by accident, but it wasn't on purpose. I'll put it that way. That one that
well, fair enough. I was actually online here, and I ended up finding this picture. Is this the what year is that, baby?
Well, that's an old Ranger boat. That might be 68 right there, 69. I kept that old Ranger boat for a while. That's 100-horse inline Mercury on there, and probably Chris caught most of those fish.
Yeah, that's usually how it works, right?
Yeah, she probably caught most of them. She just let me help hold the string. And here's the deal, that picture is almost people look at it and some people, bass fishermen, want to throw up when they see, all those fish. There was probably a 10 fish limits there. There was probably 20 fish, and probably half of them were 4 or 5 pound fish. And that was on Lake 10 Killer where we lived. And we never started releasing fish or turning them back until the 70s. We killed all those fish. Like that big string with the 810, 814, 93, we killed all those big fish, giant fish. We killed them. And there was a lot of other big, we had 16 or 18 foot John boat that they put ice in and throw the bass in there. So they give them to a local, a nursing home or a veteran center or an orphanage or someplace like that. They give them to some place locally where they could have them to eat, because we killed them all. We put them in ice chests in the boats, and Forrest Wood came up with a live well system, an aerated live well, and built into his Ranger boats. And that was really the start of bass conservation, really, when that happened. And now,
and that was the invention of the aerated live well.
Yeah, do what?
That was the invention of the aerated live well that started that?
Yeah, that's what started.
Wow, no kidding.
We were killing all those bass, and it was probably, Lord of mercy, it must have been, 72, 3 or something like that. It was 4 or 5 years into BASS before we started doing that. Wow. And they did, one of the things that Forrest Wood came up with aerated live wells, and Ray Scott put a penalty on you if they died dead after that. And that's after we'd killed thousands and thousands and thousands of fish. But the amazing thing is, from all of that and from killing those fish and realizing that we shouldn't be doing that, the conservation has started where nowadays almost no one keeps bass. Pretty much bass is catch and release fishing. There are still some fishermen that do, and some of them do it just out of spite a little bit, particularly crappie fishermen out there crappie fishing, and they catch 6 or 8 or 10 bass that day, and they'll throw them in their live well and fillet them too. Maybe just make a bass fisherman mad or something. But most bass fishermen throw back pretty much everything that they catch. And I don't think there's anything at all with eating small bass. I think you keep the small ones and throw back the big ones, and that's fine. Bass fillet out really nice, and bass are delicious, just like crappie. And, here in our lakes at home, I've got this lake, and my other lake is 77 acres, and we have to catch quite a few of those small fish out, and to keep them from getting too many of the smaller fish in the lake, and to keep the fish where when we catch one. I caught 3 off the dock down there a little bit earlier today. We had a good rain early this morning, right before and right after daylight, and dingied the water up a little bit, raised the water level a little bit. And I walked down there earlier today and caught 3, and they were all just big bulging. One's about 3 pounds, one about 3.5, and one about 4.25. And they're all just beautiful.
I've been really struggling with getting good quality bass in my pond. They're all stunted. They're the genetics are really bad. I'm trying to work that out right now. The crappie are phenomenal. The bass are hard.
About the only thing you can do. I had a friend of mine up in Kansas, a judge, that had permission to fish on a big ranch and had quite a few ponds on it. Really nice ponds. Some of them big. Guy was a cattle farmer, and most of those were just literally loaded with 8, 9, 10, 11-inch fish. And he started just simply throwing them out on the bank. I was over there turkey hunting and then fishing with the governor of Kansas on that ranch. And we decided, I told him, I said, well, I'm not, he's telling me about this one lake right there by the house. And he said, you can go down there and catch 100 between now and dark. I said, well, I think I'll go do it. And he said, they're all going to be 10, 11, 12 inches long, except you'll catch one about 5 or 6 pounds every now and then. And he said, just don't throw any of them back. He said, throw them out on the bank. And I said, well, I can't do that. I just can't throw them out on the bank. And he said, well, that's what I do. I just throw them out on the bank, feed the coyotes and coons. And I said, well, we got to keep them. I said, you got some knives? He said, we got knives. And I said, well, I'm not throwing them back. And we filleted out. Well, I went down there with my son and the camera guy, and I think we filleted out 200 and some odd fish that evening.
Wow.
But they were all small, and it helped the lake. And he had 1 or 2 smaller ponds on that ranch that he had reduced the number of fish in there by doing just what I said, throwing them out on the bank. And we fished that one with one of the ex-governors of Kansas, and we caught some pretty nice fish. I mean, really good, healthy fish. Fish are just like cattle. You can take cattle and put, so many cows per acre on some land. On other places, like in Texas, you have to have so many acres for one cow. And then you can put them on a feedlot and let them stand side by side, whether you just bunched in there as tight as they can get them, and they're still gaining 3 or 4 or 5 pounds a day because they got plenty of food. So it's really not about the number of fish in a pond or a lake. It's about the number of food, the amount of food. And the hardest and the biggest chore we've got here in our private lakes on Twin Eagle Ranch is providing enough food for the fish, because I want fishing in my lakes where everybody can go out there and have one of the finest days fishing they've ever had. Maybe catch 100 fish, 50, 60, 70, maybe 150, depending on the time of the year and stuff. And they catch a lot of nice fish, like 2, 3, 4 pounds. They got a real good chance of catching 7, 8, 9 pounder, 10 pounder, but they're going to catch a lot of fish. And it's difficult to do that. Most biologists that manage private lakes will manage either for a lot of good quality fish or really big fish and not much quantity. And so and so that's the situation on that, and
sure.
I got Apaches at the door here. He doesn't know I'm doing it.
On the topic of big fish, Ryan actually asked, what's the biggest fish that you've ever caught? And that can go for any species. So it could be catfish, bass.
Oh, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be a bass.
It doesn't have to be a bass.
Yeah, it was one of those.
Hang on.
Because
You're
it's getting cold in the water.
Oh, okay.
It's floating in the water. Now it's just getting in pieces. So
Okay. All right. I heard you working, and I heard you singing while you was working.
Oh, you hear me saying?
You sang pretty good.
No. All
right. We're doing some. I'm out here walking around. You mentioned some deer. I don't know. Can you see back behind me? I get the sun.
Yeah, I think I can see a little bit there. Yes, sir.
Who was asking about the big fish?
That's Ryan. Ryan wants to know what the biggest fish you've ever caught, any species.
What's the biggest fish that Ryan's ever caught?
Oh, that's a good question. Ryan's a fan of ours, so knowing what Ryan fishes
Can
for,
you see the deer back there?
He fishes pike a lot, so I'm sure it's going to be a pike.
Can you see the deer back there behind me?
Yeah, look at that.
How about that?
That is so cool.
Isn't that cool? That's the big ones. Those are all bucks too. That's a really big buck right there. I don't know.
Awesome.
I'm pointing in that direction. Yeah, all 6 of those deer right there are bucks, and a couple of them are pretty good size. That's cool.
Awesome.
And the biggest bass that I've caught is 13 pounds and 1 ounce, and but I caught a Goliath grouper, which is a Jewfish, but I don't know if you can really say that anymore. So they call it Goliath grouper. But I caught a Goliath grouper with Roland Martin one time that weighed 384 pounds. So that's a pretty big.
Wow.
I don't know if Ryan's caught a pike that big or not.
No,
I
surprisingly
don't know
not.
if he has.
Uh,
even a
if
muscalungy.
right. If you had to,
Roland is not only a great bass fisherman, he's extremely talented in saltwater. He's one of the best saltwater fishermen I've ever fished with, and I'm not very good in saltwater. I've fished it a lot, but I depend on other people's expertise to catch them. But Roland is really good. We hooked up 6 fish that day, and he let me catch them all actually. And
wow.
I boated 3 of them, and I had 1 come unbuttoned and 2 got back in the wreck on me. So, but we had, but 384 pounds. I caught a 130-pound alligator gar. Biggest catfish I caught weighed 93 pounds. So
Wow, that's
there's
awesome.
there's a place to fish right there behind me.
There you go.
How about that?
Yeah, we're gonna have to talk. We're gonna have to talk about that off the recording.
How about that?
Yeah,
That's pretty
yeah,
nice.
that looks like a blessing to me.
It is a blessing. I'll guarantee you that. That's about. I don't know how you rank blessings, but that's got to be up there close to the top.
Yes, sir.
I know that. Yeah, we're pretty blessed. We live in heaven, really. So
Tristan
really
wants to know of like these combinations, I suppose, a lake or river, smallmouth or largemouth. Which is what would be your favorite option?
Well, I like all of the above. I don't know that I have a favorite in there. I really enjoy catching smallmouth, and we've got really good smallmouth lakes here in Oklahoma. But I like going up north where we can. I like going up north where we can really catch big smallmouth. Like up on the St. Lawrence River, up in New York, and Mohawk Indian Reservation, where you just catch. You go up there, take 2 or 3 boats, and 3 or 4 guys go up there and catch 1,000 in a week and stuff like that. And so, but I like them all. I'm a bass fisherman. I like crappie and catfish. I paid my way through college selling catfish, so we've caught literally thousands of catfish. So, but I like them all. I enjoy river fishing. I enjoy lakes. It doesn't matter. I mean, I just, as a kid, I started as a little kid with a piece of string and a piece of bacon catching crawdads. And so everything else from there is just a step up and a big bonus. I go down there at the dock and bluegill fish with a long pole, and I still catch tons of crappie every year, and I enjoy going up and catching the northern pike and walleye and muskie, and the saltwater fishing is always a blast, and it doesn't matter. I love it all. I mean, I don't.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Absolutely.
I'm not a bass fisherman per se. The only reason that I bass fish more than I do anything else is because of the television show and because of the tournaments. And of course, we quit fishing the tournaments. 2019 was the last tournament season we fished because they changed the rules around where Chris couldn't practice with me, the 3-day practice period. And I just felt like I waited clear up till December 20 before I told them I wasn't going to fish the next year. But I kept thinking maybe they were talking about not instituting that rule. And as it turned out, they did. And so I just felt like those 3 days of practice would not be very much fun. And if I'm not having fun out there tournament fishing, I don't want to do it, And,
right.
And I almost went back to BASS. I've had several chances, obviously, to go back to BASS, but they put the same rule in. And somebody told me they thought they'd change that rule back this year. I don't know who did, if it was FLW or Major League Fishing or Bass that changed the rule back. But it's a bad rule because fishing is a game that's meant to be done with somebody else. It's nice to go out there in solitude, have fun by yourself, and get out away from the world and go fishing. But fishing is a game that is God created to do with other people and enjoy with other people. Whether it's your neighbor or your buddy or another tournament angler or your son or daughter or your wife or husband, your granddad, it doesn't matter. You do it. And, all of my early fishing in when I was a kid was with my dad and my 2 uncles and my granddad. And I fished with all of those people, up until the day that they died. And that's my love of fishing built around them. And of those, I got one uncle that finally got into bass fishing real heavy, but my dad was a big bass fisherman. But my other uncle and my granddad, they just want to go catch catfish or crappie or whatever, catfish and crappie mostly. But
Right.
and of course, we moved to the lake when I was a senior in high school, and so we did about everything you could do on a lake to make money. And one of the things that you could do was sell catfish. And so we caught thousands and thousands of catfish about every way you could catch them that was legal, and and sold them. And so we did a lot of things on the lake to make money. That's one good thing about being on a lake. There's a lot of availabilities for a kid to make a living.
In the off season, though, we discussed the pecan business, but what is your favorite thing to do on the off season? That question's from a guy named Hags.
I don't really know how to answer that because I don't really know what an off season is. I mean, I don't really.
I mean, that's a good point. You're in Oklahoma. I think the season's all year round out there, right?
Yeah, and we do 39 television shows. I do.
Yeah.
Now I'm only doing now about 80 personal appearances a year, but when I was tournament fishing, I was doing about 130 personal appearances, plus fishing 7 or 8 tournaments, doing 39 television shows. And so, there and now we're not fishing the tournaments anymore, but we've got into this social media the last 3 or 4 years, and we're doing about 800 or 900 or maybe 1,000 social media videos a year. I mean, we do the daily devotional. We do one of those every day. Our Jimmy and Chris Houston's Twin Eagle Ranch channel. We post a video, I think 6 out of the 7 days of the week there. And then we spun off of that channel to Jimmy Houston Outdoors Fishing about a month ago and just started a brand new channel up. It's little. It's only got about 5,000 people on it, but we just spun that off about a month ago to give the fishing a little bit more room because the ranch channel had pretty much just got into a lot of ranch videos and deer videos, and people said they wasn't seeing enough fishing on there, and so we spun that channel off. And but I think we put up 5 or 6 videos a week on that fishing channel. So we put up on social media, what would that be? Maybe 17, 18 videos a week. So that's probably pretty close to 1,000 videos a year we're doing for social media. That's a lot. And plus 39 television shows. And I last year I did 60 some odd appearances. I still do an awful lot of appearances, boat shows and boat dealerships and churches. And I do a lot of work for Shell Rotella, was one of our large sponsors. And we do work, a lot of appearances with them at big trade shows like Midstate and Tractor Supply and O'Reilly's and Napa and plus the fact that then we do a lot of things where we take a lot of their large customers fishing. One of the things that they make available to some of their larger customers is a fishing trip. They call it a Jimmy Houston experience, and those are the very best appearances I have, is those Jimmy Houston experiences. That's just going fishing and having fun. I have fun wherever I am. I don't mind the shows, and I love to speak at the churches and all of that, but the best personal appearances is when you back that Ranger boat in the water or that Trekker boat in the water and take somebody fishing.
That's great. So I have a personal question for you, and I'm experiencing this myself. That as I grow this brand and this business, it's the opposition kind of equally grows with. And I was just kind of curious, I wanted to ask you, have you ever received any sort of opposition, whether it be just the enemy trying to get at you or using other people or even your own flesh, and then how do you manage that opposition? It seems like as this brand grows, the haters, what they call the trolls, they come out of the woodwork, and no matter what you're doing right, that feeds and kind of complements the majority of your audience, you have a small amount of people that are always trying to tear you down. I was just kind of curious if you've ever ran into that, and if so, how do you tend to manage that?
Well, with the television show, we really haven't. The television show has been pretty much, the people that's watching the television shows, or we've been doing television now for 46 years, I guess, 46 years. I think this is our 46th year, and we're back on ESPN again, which is great. Last year, we were back on ESPN after being off of there for 10 years. It was on there 21 years, then off 10 years, and back on last year. So that's good. But the people that are watching on television, they're watching you because they love to fish and they like to watch you on TV. So you don't really have the bad people watching. So you really don't get much negative feedback from television at all. Social media is a whole different ballgame. You do get, but I tell you what, my philosophy has always been, I treat everybody special. I do that. I probably meet more fans, more fishing fans, more social media fans, person to person, than any other fisherman that's ever played the game, because I know I do more personal appearances. There were several years where I was doing 140, 150 personal appearances a year. That's a lot. I mean, it's a lot. Yeah. A lot of people don't even do 25 or 30. And so I'm with the public, in front of the public, face to face with more people, more fans, more fishing fans, more tournament fans, and now more social media fans than anybody. There's just no doubt in my mind about it. And so I've just always had a philosophy of treating everybody special, because by golly, they are. I mean, you're not treating somebody that's not special, because everybody's special. And now they may not be special to thousands of people, but they may only be special to just a handful of people, but they're special to some people. There's no doubt about it. The old deal about, well, he's got a face only a mama could love, but mama loves him. Mama loves him. Right. So he's special to mama no matter what. And so I've always chose to treat everybody like that. And I've always felt like it doesn't cost any money to be nice. It doesn't cost any money to smile. And so, I just, when I get people that say things ugly to me on social media, I just say something really, really nice back to them. And one of the things that I've learned in the few years that we've been on social media is that those guys that are, and girls, I think it's both guys and girls. We always think it's mostly guys, but it may not be. You never know what's behind that name. I mean, they're not giving you their real name anyway. And the nice ones will give you their real names, but those that are saying something ugly, they're looking for people to say something ugly about, and they're wanting to start a fight. And then when you answer them back with a really nice comment and treat them good, they don't want to fool with you. I mean, they're thinking, what is this guy? What is he? What's wrong with him, man?
Right.
Ever name in the book, and he come back and told me he's going to pray for me.
Right.
or told me he appreciated the criticism, but and you're blessing him. And so they don't, the bad ones just don't stick around too much on our social media. And one of the things about social media is you will have your real friends and fans on social media that they'll take up for you. Somebody, when they jump on you, they'll take up for you. That's and right. they'll jump onto those people also. And, the game that we play, fishing, is a fun sport. And it has, it's been from a tournament standpoint, a game that has had very, very little illegalities in it, not much cheating. And the people that have cheated in tournaments over the years, no matter what level they might have cheated on, didn't last too long. And they're just pushed out of the sport. Individuals that are bad individuals that are maybe not cheating, but maybe they're just not pleasant people to be around, don't last long in this sport. You can be, you go hit 40 home runs and bat 300, and you can be like the worst person in the world, every team in the world wants you in Major League Baseball. That ain't the case in bass fishing. Yeah. The thing about it is, the guy that won the Angler of the Year last year, or won the tournament last week, might not make a check next week, or might not make might not even qualify for the year-end tournament for the next 5 years. And that's happened. And it's happened. It's happened to a lot of people. So the game weeds out quickly the bad people. And I think that the individuals that are on social media that say nasty things, they can't stand for you to be nice to them. They just run and hide. Right. They just run and crawl under a rock somewhere. And we have actually several atheists on our Catch of the Day channel, which is a daily devotional channel. It's really, it's a scriptural channel. We've got a scripture for every day, a devotion built around fishing, and a fishing tip for every day. So it's kind of a mix of several things there, maybe, but it's a godly channel. And we've got a lot of good godly people on there. But we have several atheists on there, and they're fascinated with me, and they're fascinated with what I believe. and I treat them good. I don't argue with them, and when they say some of the things, and I've even had some of them say, Jimmy, you're my favorite Christian in the whole world, and so
Wow.
I hate several of them say things like that. I don't like Christians in general, but you're my favorite Christian. And I asked one, why am I your favorite? And he said, you never ask us for any money. And
Isn't that something?
Well, I don't ask you for any money. But then I've got some on there, some guys that are non-Christians that'll talk about having a relationship with God, but they don't believe in Christianity. They believe a relationship with God. Well, the people that crucified Jesus Christ believed in a relationship with God.
Right.
And they were wrong. They were on the wrong side of the ballgame there. And but yeah, it's amazing. It's really difficult for people to continually say bad things when you're nice back to them. And I just happened to read in my daily Bible reading today. Or no, it's on another devotion. It's where it was about, if you're asked to carry a load for a mile, carry it 2. Which meant that, and that's an old Roman soldiers could always enlist one of the Jewish people to carry their supplies or carry their pack or whatever for a mile. And Jesus said don't just carry it a mile, carry it 2. And
wow.
And Jewish people didn't like the Roman soldiers. Obviously, they were under subjugation to them. But see, it's easy to be nice to your friends, and that's what Jesus said also. But love your enemies, and that's a little harder thing to do. And those people that are saying the nasty things, they can't stand for you to be nice to them. They'll leave. They'll just disappear. They won't be back on there anymore. And they may show back up a couple, 2 or 3 months and say something nasty. But again, you just treat them with kindness and treat them like they're special. Because even those people that are saying those ugly things, they're special to somebody.
It's true. Well, this is into our kind of fun little segment here. We have every podcast we do, we have 3 questions that we ask, and then we'll get into our final segment here.
Yes, the same 3 questions to everybody.
What's that, sir?
Yes, the same 3 questions to everybody.
Yes, we do.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so this one is, what's your favorite boat snack, your favorite boat drink, and your favorite boat shoe?
Wait, my favorite what?
Boat snack. Boat snack. So on the
boat. A boat snack. Little Debbie's.
Yeah, what's your favorite boat snack?
Little Debbie's. Any kind of Little Debbie's.
Oh,
Little
Debbie.
Doesn't matter. Any kind of Little Debbie's. Zebra cakes, oatmeal cookies. Little Debbie, and Hostess and some of the other brands are good. But Little Debbie, I'm told, they're out of Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I tried forever to get a sponsor with them. I mean, I've been sponsoring them for years and years and years. It's about time they sponsor me back. But Little Debbie, I'm told, the reason that they're so good is they put twice as much sugar in their snacks as everybody else. And I've always believed in that. I've always believed in putting twice as much sugar in a bowl of cereal or some oatmeal or rice or whatever, or, put twice as much sugar in a glass of tea. You put
Little Debbie, if you're listening, Little Debbie, Jimmy's he's ready for his deal. Okay.
Yeah, I've supported them for a long time. Now they've kept those buildings open in Chattanooga because of me. And one of the great boat snacks, I'm sure you've heard if you've asked this question to a lot of people, are moon pies. They're also right down, not too far from the Little Debbie plant.
No kidding. Well, what about your favorite drink?
But when Little Debbie's came along, that kicked the moon pies out of the boat.
Yeah. What about your favorite boat drink?
Well, I drink energy drinks, and I drink I drank Bang in the boat a lot. I didn't drink the energy drinks when they had a lot of sugar in them and real really jack you up real high and then you crash and stuff. But they came out with the 0 calorie energy drinks, and I got on the Monsters and the different brands, but I finally got to drinking Bang, and so I drank Bang, and it's got something in it called super creatine, which is supposed to help your brain. Can't you tell, Rick, that I've been drinking that? Can't you tell?
I can tell. I mean, the smart, the
nobody's been able to tell. I keep thinking. I need to probably put some Prevagen pills inside of that bag. Maybe
Yeah.
that might be a really killer deal right there. I might try that.
You gave somebody an idea there.
Yeah.
Okay. What about the last fun little question here? What's your favorite boat shoe?
Boat shoe?
For example, mine would be Crocs.
Well, I probably Frog Tog shoes. They've come out with some new shoes a couple years ago that are really, really comfortable. I wore Soft Science for I've got Soft Science on right now. As a matter of fact, I wore Soft Science for 4 or 5 or 6 years, and until then that company went out of business. I had several pair of them, and I haven't worn them all out yet, but pretty soon I'm gonna have to quit wearing Soft Science. But I've been wearing Frog Togs quite a bit. They're good. Very
cool. All right. Well, last but not least, I wanted to just give you an idea to shout out anything. Obviously, I wanted to highlight your book. I have the book. I read it daily. It is my daily devotional that I prefer, not only because it there you go. And you guys can get this book, by the way, over at jimmyhouston.com. I'll share that with you here. Let me get to the right screen. There it is. Haha. And so, yeah, check it out. It's right under books on the top menu there, and you'll see all of the books that Jimmy has published in the past. This is the most recent one. And like Jimmy said earlier, you got a daily, devotion here. So you got a verse of the day. You get, so you got your date, you got the verse of the day, a little blurb, kind of a writing that Jimmy has done. Really good reminders and really good stories in there. And then also a fishing tip that you can use. And that's why I like it. It's a little bit different than your average, devotional. It's not just information for your spiritual walk, but also kind of gives you a little tip on the water too. So I definitely recommend it. My favorite devotional thus far.
Well, we read those on the air. We post those devotionals at 5:00 every morning Central Time on the Catch a Better Life channel on YouTube. I think there's about 25,000 people on there. We started that channel about a year ago or 2 years ago. I don't know, maybe it's 2 years ago. And but it's and we read that, and a lot of people buy the book and follow along with me when I'm reading it on the air. And it's only 3, 4, 5, 6 minutes that all it is sometimes. And I'll embellish a little bit depending on, as I read through there, what pops into my mind. I might talk a little bit more about the scripture and where that scripture is pertained to in life and various whatever I may think about it. I might talk a little bit more about the fishing tip, or I might talk a little bit more about the devotional. And usually it's about a 5-minute deal, and that's all. But so many people wait on that thing at 5:00. There's a lot of people up at 5:00 in the morning and will start their day with that devotional. And I've always had a belief that if you start your day, whether it's 5:00 in the morning it's up there all the time. I mean, once it's up there until they kick us off YouTube or something. But I don't know how long. I guess it stays there forever. But if you just spend your one scripture with God a day, one scripture, I mean, that's not very much. But if you just do that, you're honoring God for that day, and God will honor you back. And it just changes your day in so many different ways. And it's just like everything else in the Bible. There are so many people out of those. And we've got 600 and some odd thousand people on our Facebook page. And the other day, one of those devotionals had 56,000 people on Facebook look at it. Wow. Listen to it. It's also on Facebook. We have the audio video on Facebook, and then we post the script on Facebook. We post the page so they can read it. And we usually have 30 or 40,000 people read it. So it reaches probably anywhere 50 to 100,000 people every single day. And there's so many people that comment. We get thousands of comments. So many people that comment that scripture for that day was just exactly what they need. Well, that's what the Bible is all about. You can be going through something in your life, whatever it may be, and pick a Bible up and just open it up and put your hand down there and start reading. And God will use that scripture to help solve what you're going through right now. It's not just a book. It's not just a bunch of different people that wrote about godly things or scriptural things or wrote about Jesus. The Bible is written by God himself. It's penned by
many times throughout the day. The Holy Spirit will will bring that verse that I read up throughout the day. You know, the Holy Spirit will bring it up and constantly remind me of whatever, you know, whatever
it's there to help you. And it might be in a situation where somebody's ugly to you, and you might be tempted to be ugly back to them or say something, and the Holy Spirit that's inside of you pops that scripture up, and you say, "Oh, wait a minute," and so you're nice to them instead,
right?
And so, or you know, just so many things. I mean, so many things, and I'm gonna tell you, Rick, it helps me to read those every day. It helps me. It helps me to read the devotionals. Just pick the thing up and read the devotionals. It helps me, and it certainly helps me to do the audio video that we put on the Catch a Better Life channel every day on YouTube and on Facebook. It sure does.
That's awesome. Well, if there's anything kind of as a little outro here, is there anything? Obviously, you plugged the YouTube channels, and then we highlighted the book. Is there anything that you'd like to highlight? Anything else you're working on currently that you're able to share or you want to draw attention to?
Well, you know, they need to catch the television show. We're on ESPN2 every Saturday morning at 7:30 Eastern time, the first 26 weeks of the year. We're on the Discovery Channel Sunday morning. We're on WFN, World Fishing Network. We're on AT&T Sports Southwest, Heartland Network down in the Southeast, a big network down in the Southeast. The AT&T Sports Southwest is a network that the Houston Astros and the Houston Rockets and all the sports the tank teams down in Texas are on. So catch that television show. It's our 46 years, I think, that we've been doing the television show now. It's amazing. Wow. It's hard to believe. And you know, my buddies, Roland Martin has been doing his 2 years longer than me, and Dance has been doing his 4 years longer. So wow. I think this is 50 years for Dance, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's 50 years for him, and he started locally, but I think it's 50 years he's been doing national. So I think he's actually been doing but you got to realize Bill and Roland are a lot older than me too.
Yeah. You hear that, boys? You hear that?
They know that. You know, those guys are amazing guys. They're amazing friends. And Bill and Roland will both be 83 this year. Roland will be 83 this month or next month. And Bill didn't turn 83 till October, November. But Johnny Morse turned 75 this month, the guy, or next month in March, the guy that started Bass Pro Shop. And Bill and Roland and I have been with Johnny since almost day one. And we still work and promote, Bass Pro Shop and Tracker boats. And now Johnny owns Ranger also. I've run Ranger boats since, as we talked about, and clear back to 1968. And I've run Tracker aluminum now for 25 or 30 years. And so it's amazing when you look at those four individuals there, what they've seen happen in this game from the start to where it is now. And we like to talk about the electronics that we have in our Garmin live scopes and being able to see fish out in front of the boat and catch these 10, 11, 12, 13 pounders that we've never even been able to fish for before. And now we're catching them in open water in the wintertime and how we have to do it and all of this stuff. And yet you think back, and I can remember when Carl Lawrence first came out with a little green box in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I lived on Lake 10 Killer, 80 miles away, and bought one of those things, saved up the money and bought one of those little green boxes. And where you'd hold the transducer over the side, and you could tell how deep it was. And that's really all you could tell. And then we're able to mount it on the boat and idle, move your boat around and tell how deep it was. And then pretty soon you could maybe run 15 or 20 miles an hour and still tell how deep it was. And now, we run 75 miles an hour with 250 horsepower motors and read the bottom, and we look out all around with forward facing sonar and all of this kind of stuff. And some of us now are, my new Ranger boat that is being rigged right now. They're putting my last Garmin's on right now over at our boat dealership on Lake 10 Killer. And I'm mounting 2 live scopes on there. I've got one on a right height turret, and I've got one on my trolling motor. So I've got 2 live scopes on the front of the boat, and there's some muskie fishermen and stuff up north that are running 4 and 5 and 6 live scope transducers on their boat, and a lot of crappie fishermen that are running, particularly the ones that are crappie fishing out of pontoon boats, which is a great way to guide out. It is a pontoon boat. Takes several people, and but they've got live scopes pointing in every direction. Some of them got 5 or 6 live scopes, and so I think that probably in the not too distant future, having 2 live scopes on your front of your boat is going to be just as common as having 2 power poles on the back of it.
No kidding. That's cool.
But when you think about what we've seen happen in those 46, 48, 50 years, it's just pretty amazing to live through it and see all that happen. And I don't know about building and rolling. Them suckers will probably be doing fishing shows when they're 100.
Yeah, I don't doubt it.
I'll be right behind them. I'll be right behind them.
Well, Jimmy, brother, we appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. And man, you've been an inspiration to me. I appreciate you for your example and what you've done to help contribute to this industry and what it's become, man. Thank you so much. If you don't mind hanging with me for a little bit, I'm going to just clear the outro here, and then
all righty.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much, Jim.
I appreciate you, Rick. Thank you very much.
All right, guys, I love you so much. Thank you so much for hanging with us. Another one. What an awesome one this was. We'll see you on the next one. Love you guys.